My family invited 112 people to my brother's wedding. 112 people. Distant cousins I hadn't seen in years. High school friends he barely talks to. His ex-girlfriend's sister, for crying out loud. Even the mailman got an invitation. But you want to know who didn't get one? Me, his own sister. The person who held his hair back when he was sick. The person who covered for him when he snuck out in high school. The person who helped him pick out the engagement ring. If you think family betrayal cuts deep, hit that like button because you have no idea how deep this wound goes. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, subscribe, because this story is going to shake you to your core. Drop a comment if you've ever been the forgotten family member, because what I did next changed everything forever. Let me take you back to 3 months ago, when I first realized something was wrong. I was sitting in my apartment, scrolling through Instagram like any normal Tuesday evening when I saw it. A photo from my cousin Sarah's account. She was holding this gorgeous cream-colored envelope with elegant gold lettering. The caption read, "So excited for Jake's wedding. Can't wait to celebrate love. Jake." My brother Jake. My heart stopped. Wedding invitation? What wedding invitation? I stared at that photo for what felt like hours. The envelope was clearly expensive. The kind of thick, textured paper that screams, "important event." The kind my family never splurged on for anything. But they'd splurged on this. I called Jake immediately. My hands were shaking as I dialed his number. "Hey sis, what's up?" His voice was cheerful, normal. Like nothing was wrong. "Jake, I just saw Sarah's Instagram. Wedding invitation." There was a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause that made my stomach drop. "Oh, yeah, about that." His voice changed, became distant, guarded. "About what? When were you going to tell me you were getting married? And when was I going to get my invitation?" Another pause. This one even longer. "Amber, listen. It's complicated." "Complicated? How is inviting your sister to your wedding complicated?" "What do you mean complicated?" "I'm your sister, Jake. Your only sister." I know. But Sarah, she has some concerns. Sarah, his fiancée. The woman I'd met exactly 3 times in the 2 years they'd been together. The woman who smiled at me with perfectly white teeth while her eyes stayed cold as ice. What kind of concerns? She thinks it would be better if we kept it small. "Family only," I laughed. Actually laughed. Because the irony was too much. I am family, Jake. I'm your sister. I'm literally family. You know what I mean. But I didn't know what he meant. I didn't understand how the person who used to build blanket forts with me, who taught me how to ride a bike, who promised he'd always have my back, could stand there and tell me I wasn't family enough for his wedding. Jake, please, help me understand. What did I do wrong? The silence stretched between us like a canyon. It's not what you did. It's just, Sarah's family is very traditional. They have certain expectations. And with your situation, my situation, he meant my divorce. My messy public divorce that had happened 2 years ago. The one where my ex-husband had cheated with his secretary and I'd found out by walking in on them in our bed. The divorce where I'd had to fight for everything, the house, the car, even my own self-worth. My divorce was 2 years ago, Jake. I've moved on. I'm in a good place now, I know. But Sarah's family, they're very conservative. They don't really understand divorce, and they think it might be awkward. My presence at my own brother's wedding would be awkward. I felt something break inside me. Something that had been cracking for months finally shattered. So you're choosing them over me. It's not about choosing sides. Amber, it's about keeping the peace. Keeping the peace by excluding your sister? Look, maybe we can do something afterwards. A small celebration, just us. Would that work? A consolation prize. A participation trophy. A pat on the head for the family disappointment. No, Jake. That wouldn't work. I hung up. I sat in my apartment for hours after that call, staring at the wall, trying to process what had just happened. My brother, my baby brother, who I'd practically helped raise after our parents got too busy with their careers, had uninvited me from the most important day of his life because his fiancée found me embarrassing. But it got worse. Over the next few days, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. And what I discovered made me sick. My Aunt Carol posted about getting her invitation. My Uncle Tom shared a photo of his. Cousin Mike, who lived 3 states away and barely talked to any of us, got one. My parents' neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, who Jake had probably spoken to 5 times in his entire life, posted about how honored she felt to be invited. I started making a list. Every person I saw post about Jake's wedding, I wrote down their name. The list grew longer and longer. Family members I'd forgotten existed. Friends from college Jake hadn't spoken to in years. His old baseball coach. His first boss from that summer job in high school. By the end of the week, I had counted 89 people who had publicly acknowledged receiving invitations. But I wasn't done. I called my mom. "Hi, honey. How are you doing?" "I'm fine, Mom. Listen, I wanted to ask you about Jake's wedding." Another pause. God, why was everyone pausing? "What about it?" "Well, I haven't received my invitation yet, and I was wondering if maybe it got lost in the mail or something." My mother sighed. That deep, tired sigh she used to make when I was a teenager and had disappointed her again. "Amber, sweetheart, we need to talk. We. Not Jake and Sarah. We. As in, my parents were part of this decision. Talk about what?" "About the wedding." "About why? Why it might be better if you didn't attend." The world tilted. My own mother. Better for who? For everyone. "Jake's really happy, honey. Sarah's a wonderful girl from a lovely family. They want everything to be perfect. Perfect. And apparently I wasn't perfect enough. Mom, he's my brother." "I know. But sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the people we love." "What about the sacrifice he's asking me to make?" "It's just one day, Amber. Just one day. The day my brother promised to love someone forever. The day he started his new life. The day our family celebrated love and commitment and forever. Just one day that I was deemed too broken to witness. How many people are invited, Mom?" "What? How many people are on the guest list?" "I don't think that matters." "How many?" She sighed again. 112. 112 people were important enough to witness my brother's wedding. But not me. "Mom, I helped him pick out the engagement ring." "I know." "Sweetheart, I was the one who encouraged him to propose." "I know. I was the one who held him when Sarah broke up with him for 3 days in college, and he thought his life was over." "Amber, I was the one who helped him write his first love letter to her. Please don't make this harder than it has to be." "Harder? For who? For them? What about how hard it was for me?" I hung up on my mother, too. That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I created a fake Instagram account. I know, it sounds pathetic. But I needed to understand how 112 people could be more important than me. I started following everyone I knew had been invited. I watched their stories. I saw their excitement. The dress shopping trips with Sarah, the bachelor party planning, the venue tours, the cake tastings, and in every single photo, every story, every post, I saw my family, my parents, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, all of them celebrating, all of them part of this joyous occasion, all of them acting like I didn't exist. But the worst part came 2 weeks later. I was at the grocery store, in the produce section trying to decide between apples, when I heard a familiar laugh. I turned around and saw my cousin Emma with her teenage daughter, Lily. "Aunt Amber." Lily ran over and hugged me. Sweet kid. Always treated me like I was her favorite aunt, even though I was technically her cousin. "Hey, Lily. How are you doing?" "I'm great. I'm so excited about Uncle Jake's wedding. I get to be a junior bridesmaid." My heart stopped. Junior bridesmaid. Emma's face went white. "Lily, honey, why don't you go pick out some bananas?" "But Mom, I want to tell Aunt Amber about my dress. It's this beautiful lavender color and—" "Lily, bananas. Now." The teenager looked confused but walked away. Emma turned to me with the same look everyone had been giving me lately. Pity mixed with guilt. "Amber, I'm sorry. I thought you knew about Lily being in the wedding." "I didn't know about the wedding at all, Emma. I'm not invited." Her mouth fell open. "What? That can't be right. You're his sister." Apparently not sister enough. Emma looked around nervously like she was afraid someone would overhear us. There has to be some mistake. Maybe your invitation got lost. I almost laughed. Almost. Because even my cousin, who I saw maybe twice a year at family gatherings, knew this was wrong. It's not a mistake. They deliberately didn't invite me, but why? I told her. I told her about Sarah's traditional family and my awkward divorce and how my presence would ruin their perfect day. I watched Emma's expression change from confusion to horror to anger. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, she said. Your family. Divorce doesn't make you less family. Tell that to Jake and Sarah, and my parents, apparently. Emma shook her head. This is wrong. This is so wrong. You know what? I'm not going. Emma, no. Don't do that. Don't make this bigger than it already is. Bigger? Amber, this is already huge. They've excluded you from your own brother's wedding. If they can do that to you, what does that say about how they view the rest of us? She had a point. If I could be cut out so easily, who else was expendable? I can't ask you to boycott the wedding for me. You're not asking. I'm deciding. And I'm going to talk to the others. This isn't right. But that night, Emma called me back. I talked to my mom, she said. Her voice was different, defeated. And? She said it's not our place to get involved. That it's Jake's wedding and his decision. Another one. Another family member who chose the easy path. Emma, you don't have to. No, I want to. But if I boycott the wedding, my mom says she'll never speak to me again. She says I'd be ruining Jake's special day and causing family drama. Family drama. Because apparently my exclusion wasn't drama, but standing up for me would be. I understand. I'm sorry, Amber. I really am. Everyone was sorry, but not sorry enough to actually do anything about it. That night, I made a decision. If my family wanted to pretend I didn't exist, then I'd give them a real reason to remember me. I started researching. I spent hours online, looking up wedding venues in our area. I checked social media posts, cross-referenced locations, and finally found it. The Grandview Estate. A gorgeous historical mansion with manicured gardens and a ballroom that cost more per hour than I made in a month. Jake's wedding was going to be there on Saturday, June 15th, at 4 p.m. I looked at my calendar. I had that day off from work. How convenient. Then I started planning. Real planning. The kind of planning that would make sure Jake's perfect wedding became unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. I know what you're thinking. I know this sounds crazy, but you have to understand, I wasn't thinking clearly. I was hurt. I was angry. I felt invisible and forgotten and completely betrayed by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. And when you're that hurt, you don't always make the best decisions, but I was about to make a decision that would change everything. Not just for Jake's wedding day, but for our entire family. Forever. Because if they wanted me to disappear, I was going to make sure they'd never forget me again. The question wasn't whether I was going to crash my brother's wedding. The question was how spectacular the crash was going to be. I had 3 weeks to plan the perfect revenge. 3 weeks to make sure that Jake's perfect wedding became the most memorable disaster in our family's history. And trust me, I used every single day. First, I needed information. Real information. Not just the basic details I'd scraped together from social media stalking. I needed the inside scoop. The timeline. The seating arrangements. The vendors. Everything. That's when I remembered Kelly. Kelly Morrison had been my best friend in high school. We'd lost touch after college, but I knew she worked in event planning now. More importantly, I knew she had connections in the wedding industry. And after some digging through LinkedIn, I discovered she worked for Premier Events, the exact company Sarah had hired to coordinate the wedding. I know. The universe has a twisted sense of humor sometimes. I called Kelly on a Thursday evening, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. Amber? Oh my God, is that really you? Her voice was warm, excited, like we'd talked yesterday instead of 5 years ago. Hey, Kelly. Yeah, it's me. Listen, this is going to sound weird, but I need a favor. Of course. Anything. What's going on? I took a deep breath. My brother's getting married and I want to surprise him. But I need some inside information about the event. It wasn't technically a lie. I did want to surprise him, your brother. Wait, what's his name? Jake Patterson. His wedding is at the Grandview Estate on June 15th. There was a pause. I could practically hear Kelly flipping through files in her head. Oh, the Patterson-Williams wedding. Yes, I know that one. Sarah Williams, right? Super detailed bride, has very specific requirements. That's the one. What kind of surprise are you planning? My mind raced. I needed something believable. Something that wouldn't raise red flags. I want to put together a video montage of Jake growing up. You know, photos and home movies. But I need to know the exact timeline so I can coordinate with the DJ to play it at the right moment. Ah, that's so sweet. He's going to love that. Let me pull up the file. I heard typing in the background. Okay, so the ceremony starts at 4 p.m. sharp. Cocktail hour from 5 to 6. Dinner service begins at 6:30. First dances at 7:45. The best man's speech is scheduled for 8:15, and then open dancing until midnight. Perfect. And where exactly will everyone be during cocktail hour? The garden terrace? It's this gorgeous outdoor space with string lights and a fountain. Very romantic. Sarah specifically requested it because she wanted the perfect backdrop for photos. Of course she did. And the bridal party? Where will they be? Well, after the ceremony, they'll do formal photos for about 30 minutes. Then they'll join the cocktail hour. Why? Just want to make sure I time everything perfectly. We talked for another 20 minutes. Kelly gave me details I never could have gotten on my own. The vendor names? The timeline down to the minute. The fact that Sarah had hired 3 different photographers because she wanted every angle covered. The detail about how she'd taste-tested 17 different cake flavors before settling on vanilla bean with raspberry filling. But the most important piece of information came at the end of our conversation. You know? It's funny, Kelly said. Sarah asked me specifically about uninvited guests. She was really worried about wedding crashers. My heart stopped. Wedding crashers? Yeah, she made us put together a whole security protocol. Guest list verification at the entrance, assigned seating to track who's there, the works. She was paranoid about people showing up who weren't supposed to be there. Sarah was expecting me. Maybe not me specifically, but she was ready for uninvited guests. This was going to be harder than I thought. Did she mention anyone in particular she was worried about? No, just she said there were some family members who might try to cause problems. She wanted to make sure we could handle any situations that came up. Family members who might cause problems. She meant me. Sarah was so concerned about me showing up that she'd hired security to keep me out. The audacity was breathtaking. She'd stolen my brother, convinced my family to abandon me, and then hired bodyguards to make sure I couldn't even witness the destruction of my family. But if Sarah thought a guest list and some security guards were going to stop me, she clearly didn't know who she was dealing with. After I hung up with Kelly, I sat in my apartment and stared at the wall for a long time. Part of me, a big part of me, wanted to give up. To accept defeat. To let them have their perfect wedding and try to move on with my life. But then I remembered something. 2 years ago, when my divorce was at its ugliest, when my ex-husband was trying to take everything I'd worked for, when I was barely holding myself together, Jake had come to my apartment. He'd found me crying on my kitchen floor, surrounded by legal documents and empty wine bottles. "I got your back, sis," he'd said, sitting down next to me on the cold tile. "Always, no matter what. We're family. That means something. Family means something." Those were his words, his promise. And now he was breaking it in the most public, humiliating way possible. So I got back to planning. The guest list verification was a problem, but not an insurmountable one. I needed to get on that list legitimately, which meant I needed an invitation. That's when I remembered Marcus. Marcus Webb was Jake's college roommate. They'd been best friends for years, practically brothers. Marcus had definitely been invited. But Marcus also had a weakness. He was perpetually single and always looking for a date to events like this. I'd met Marcus dozens of times over the years. He'd always been friendly, a little flirty, completely harmless. And if I remembered correctly, he'd recently broken up with his longtime girlfriend. I found Marcus on social media and sent him a message. Hey Marcus, hope you're doing well. I heard about your breakup with Jennifer. I'm so sorry. Listen, I know this is random, but I was wondering if you needed a +1 for Jake's wedding. I know it's family-focused, but I thought it might be nice to have a familiar face there. I held my breath waiting for his response. It came 3 hours later. Amber, great to hear from you. Actually, that would be perfect. I was dreading going solo. Jake didn't mention you weren't invited. I just figured you'd be in the bridal party or something. Want to be my date? Perfect. Marcus assumed I'd been invited all along. He had no idea about the family drama, and now I had legitimate access to the wedding. I responded immediately. I'd love to. Can't wait to catch up. Just like that, I was back on the guest list, but I wasn't done. Getting inside the wedding was only the first step. I needed to make an impact. I needed to do something that would expose Sarah and my family for what they really were. That's when the real plan started forming. Over the next 2 weeks, I did more research. I looked up every guest on that 112-person list that I could find online. I studied their social media profiles, their connections to Jake and Sarah, their relationships with each other, and I discovered something interesting. Remember how I mentioned that Sarah's family was very traditional and very conservative? Well, it turns out that was only partly true. Sarah's family was traditional about some things, like divorce being shameful, but surprisingly progressive about others. Sarah's uncle Tony, for instance, had been posting extensively about his support for LGBTQ+ rights. Her cousin Michelle was very vocal about women's empowerment and breaking traditional gender roles. Her mother, the woman who apparently found my divorce so scandalous, had been sharing articles about mental health awareness and removing stigma from therapy and medication. But the most interesting discovery was about Sarah herself. See, while she was busy portraying herself as this pure, traditional bride who couldn't bear to have a divorced woman at her wedding, Sarah had some secrets of her own. It took some deep digging, but I found Sarah's old blog. She'd apparently had a lifestyle blog in college called Sarah's Authentic Life, where she shared personal stories and photos. The blog had been inactive for 3 years, but the posts were still there, and what I found was fascinating. Sarah had written extensively about her journey of self-discovery in college. She'd written about experimenting with different relationships, about questioning traditional values, about rejecting the expectations her family had placed on her. But the most damaging post was from her senior year, titled Why I'll Never Get Married. In it, Sarah had written, "Marriage is an outdated institution designed to control women and limit our potential. I refuse to be tied down by some archaic ceremony that reduces me to property being transferred from father to husband. I'm going to live my life on my own terms, free from the judgment of people who think a woman's worth is determined by her relationship status." The woman who was now judging me for being divorced had literally written a manifesto about why marriage was oppressive and outdated. But it got better. I found photos from her college years, photos of Sarah at parties drinking heavily, photos of her with various boyfriends, multiple boyfriends, sometimes in the same semester, photos that directly contradicted the pure traditional image she was now projecting. And then I found the smoking gun. Buried deep in her blog archives was a post called My Biggest Mistake. In it, Sarah had written about cheating on a boyfriend during her junior year. She'd described feeling terrible about it but justified it by saying she was young and figuring herself out. Sarah, who was now excluding me from the wedding because divorce was too shameful for her traditional family, had cheated on someone and written about it publicly. The hypocrisy was stunning, but I still needed a way to expose all of this. I needed a moment during the wedding where I could reveal the truth about Sarah, about the family that had abandoned me, about the whole facade they were all maintaining. That's when I remembered the video montage idea I'd told Kelly about. What if I actually made a video? Not the sweet tribute I'd described, but something else entirely. A real tribute to family, including the family members who got discarded when they became inconvenient. I spent the next week putting it together, I gathered photos of Jake and me growing up. The two of us building snowmen. Jake teaching me to drive. Me helping him with homework. Him walking me to school when I was scared of the older kids. Both of us at family gatherings, always together, always supporting each other. I included video clips too. Jake's high school graduation speech, where he thanked me for being the best sister a guy could ask for. His birthday message to me from 2 years ago, where he called me his role model and his best friend. Clip from Christmas where he'd said I was the most important person in his life. But then the video took a turn. I included screenshots of the wedding planning posts I'd seen. Photos of family members celebrating an event I'd been excluded from. Screenshots of the guest list discussions I'd found online. Images of the 112 people who were more important than his sister. And finally, I included Sarah's blog posts. Screenshots of her anti-marriage manifesto. Photos from her college years. The post about cheating? All of it. The video was 15 minutes long. Long enough to do real damage. I contacted the DJ, a guy named Rick, who I'd found on the vendor list Kelly had given me. I told him I was Jake's sister and that I wanted to surprise him with a special tribute video during the reception. I explained that I'd coordinated with the wedding planner and that it should be played right after the best man's speech. Rick was enthusiastic. He loved the idea of a surprise family tribute. He promised to have the video ready to go. Everything was falling into place. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through the plan in my head, imagining how it would unfold. The shocked faces when my video started playing. The gasps when Sarah's secrets were revealed. Jake's expression when he realized what he'd done to his own sister. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me knew this would be devastating for everyone involved. But a bigger part of me felt justified. They had humiliated me. They had treated me like I was worthless. They had chosen appearance over family, tradition over love, convenience over loyalty. They deserved to face the consequences. The morning of the wedding, I got up early and went to the salon. If I was going to crash my brother's wedding, I was going to look incredible doing it. I got my hair done, my nails painted, a full makeup application. I bought a new dress, a stunning red number that would definitely stand out in photos. I wasn't trying to upstage the bride. I was trying to make sure everyone would remember exactly who had been there when their perfect wedding fell apart. At 3:30 p.m., Marcus picked me up. He looked handsome in his navy suit, completely oblivious to what was about to happen. "You look amazing." "Amber, Jake's going to be so happy to see you. If only he knew." As we drove to the Grandview estate, Marcus chatted about work, about mutual friends, about how excited he was to see Jake get married. His innocence was almost painful. He had no idea he was driving me to commit what might be the most spectacular act of family revenge in our history. "I'm really glad you reached out," he said as we pulled into the estate's circular driveway. "It'll be nice to have someone to talk to. These family weddings can be awkward when you don't know anyone." I looked out the window at the beautiful venue. String lights were already twinkling in the early evening light. Guests were arriving, dressed in their finest clothes, carrying wrapped gifts, smiling and laughing. In a few hours, those smiles would be gone, "Yeah," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. "It's going to be unforgettable." Marcus laughed. "I hope so. Jake deserves the best." As we walked toward the entrance, I could see the check-in table Kelly had mentioned. 2 women in black dresses stood behind it, holding clipboards and guest lists. Security, just like Sarah had planned, but I wasn't worried. I had Marcus. I had a legitimate invitation. I was going to get inside, and once I was inside, the real show could begin. We approached the check-in table, and one of the women smiled at us. "Good evening." "Names, please?" "Marcus Webb +1, Marcus said confidently. The woman scanned her list. "Perfect. Here are your programs and table assignments. You're at table 7. The ceremony will begin in about 20 minutes on the main lawn." Just like that, we were in. As we walked through the elegant foyer toward the garden where the ceremony would take place, I spotted my parents near the entrance. My mother was wearing a pale pink dress and pearls, looking every inch the proud mother of the groom. My father stood beside her in his best suit, shaking hands with other guests. They looked happy, relaxed, like they hadn't just disowned their daughter. My mother's eyes met mine across the room, and her face went white. She elbowed my father, who turned and saw me too. The shock on his face would have been funny if it hadn't hurt so much. I smiled and waved like nothing was wrong, because in about 3 hours, nothing would ever be the same again. The ceremony was about to begin, and I had front row seats to watch my brother promise to love someone who had convinced him to abandon his own family. But Jake had no idea that his abandoned sister was sitting just 50 feet away, with a video that would expose everything. The real question wasn't whether I was going to go through with this. The real question was whether my family would survive what was about to happen next. The ceremony was beautiful. I hate that I have to admit that, but it was. Sarah looked stunning in her flowing white dress, walking down the aisle lined with white roses and baby's breath. Jake stood at the altar in his black tuxedo, tears streaming down his face as he watched his bride approach. For a moment, just one moment, I forgot why I was there. I forgot about the video, the revenge, the betrayal. I just saw my little brother getting married, and despite everything, my heart swelled with love for him. But then Sarah reached the altar, and I saw her smile. That perfect practice smile I'd seen 3 times before. The smile that never reached her eyes. The smile of someone who had gotten exactly what she wanted, and I remembered why I was there. The officiant began speaking about love and commitment and family. He talked about how marriage brings 2 families together, creating bonds that last forever. He spoke about support and loyalty and standing by each other through thick and thin. Every word felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Marcus leaned over and whispered, "Beautiful ceremony." Jake looked so happy. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. From where I sat, I could see my parents in the front row. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. My father beamed with pride. Around me, 111 other guests watched with joy and approval as my brother promised to forsake all others for the woman who had convinced him to forsake his own sister. The irony was suffocating. During the vows, Jake spoke about finding his perfect match and his soulmate. He talked about Sarah completing him and making him a better man. He promised to put her first, always above all others, including me, apparently. Sarah's vows were equally nauseating. She spoke about Jake being her knight in shining armor and promised to support his dreams and be his safe harbor in every storm. She talked about the beautiful family they would create together and the legacy of love they would leave behind, a legacy that apparently didn't include his existing family. When Jake said, "I do," the crowd erupted in applause. When Sarah said, "I do," I felt something die inside me. And when the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, I knew there was no going back. Jake kissed his new bride, and everyone cheered. Rice flew through the air. Photographers captured every smile, every tear, every perfect moment, but they had no idea what was coming. As the wedding party processed back down the aisle, Jake's eyes found mine in the crowd. For a split second, his smile faltered. He looked shocked, confused, almost guilty. But then Sarah grabbed his arm, pulling him forward, and the moment passed. My parents, however, weren't as composed. I watched my mother nearly stumble when she spotted me, and my father's face went from proud to panicked in an instant. They whispered frantically to each other, no doubt trying to figure out how their disowned daughter had managed to infiltrate their son's perfect wedding. The cocktail hour was torture. Marcus and I mingled with the other guests on the garden terrace, making small talk and pretending everything was normal. I smiled and congratulated people on the beautiful ceremony. I complimented dresses and commented on the gorgeous venue, all while my parents watched me from across the terrace like I was a bomb about to explode, which in a way, I was. "You look stunning. By the way," Marcus said as we stood near the fountain sipping champagne, "that red dress is incredible on you." Thank you. I wanted to look my best tonight. Jake's going to be so surprised to see you. I still can't believe he didn't mention you weren't originally invited. That seems like such an oversight. If only he knew it wasn't an oversight at all. I watched the other guests mingling around us. There was Sarah's college roommate, taking selfies by the rose garden. There was Jake's high school baseball coach, telling stories to anyone who would listen. There were distant relatives I barely recognized. Great aunts and second cousins who somehow made the cut when I didn't. At one point, I found myself in conversation with Sarah's grandmother, a sweet elderly woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "You must be so proud of Sarah," I said, making polite conversation. "Oh, I am. She's such a wonderful girl. So thoughtful and caring. And Jake seems like a lovely young man." "He is. He's always been special. Are you family? You look familiar, but I can't quite place you." "I'm Jake's sister." The woman's face lit up. "Oh, how wonderful. Sarah mentioned Jake had a sister, but she said you couldn't make it tonight." "Something about living far away?" "Living far away." That's what Sarah had told her own grandmother. Not that I was excluded, not that I was persona non grata, just that I lived too far away to attend. Another lie in the web of deception they'd created? "Well, I wouldn't miss my brother's wedding for anything," I said with a smile. "Of course not. Family is everything. Sarah always says that family comes first, no matter what." The irony was so thick I could taste it. Around 5:30, my mother finally approached me. She looked elegant and composed, but I could see the panic in her eyes. "Amber, sweetheart. What a surprise to see you here." "Hi, Mom. Beautiful ceremony. You must be so proud." She glanced around nervously, probably looking for security or my father or anyone who could help her handle this situation. "How did you—" "I mean, we weren't expecting— Marcus invited me as his +1. I hope that's okay. I wouldn't want to cause any problems at Jake's perfect wedding." The emphasis on perfect wasn't lost on her. Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course you're welcome. Your family. It's just, Sarah was hoping for a small, intimate celebration. I can see that. Only 1 to 12 people. Very intimate," my mother flinched. "Amber, please. Don't make a scene. Not today. Not on Jake's wedding day." "I wouldn't dream of making a scene, Mom. I'm just here to celebrate my brother's happiness. Just like everyone else." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. But what could she do? I was there legitimately, behaving perfectly, causing no problems. Yet. Just, please, be careful. Sarah's family is very traditional. They don't understand. Understand what? Understand family loyalty? Understanding standing by the people you claim to love? Or do they not understand how to exclude people without looking like monsters? That's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. But here we are. My mother looked like she wanted to say more, but Marcus appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. "Mrs. Patterson, great to see you. Beautiful wedding. You must be so happy?" "Yes, very happy." "Marcus, thank you for bringing Amber. That was very thoughtful of you." Marcus beamed, completely missing the tension. "Of course. Family should be together for moments like this." The words hung in the air like an accusation. My mother's face went pale. "Yes. Yes, they should. Excuse me, I should go check on the photographer." She hurried away, leaving Marcus looking confused. Was it something I said? "No, Marcus. You said exactly the right thing." As the cocktail hour continued, I noticed other family members starting to spot me. My Aunt Carol did a double take when she saw me near the bar. My cousin Emma looked like she'd seen a ghost when our eyes met across the terrace. Uncle Tom actually dropped his drink when he realized I was there. The whispers started soon after. I could see little clusters of family members talking in hushed tones, glancing in my direction. They all knew I wasn't supposed to be there. They all knew something was very wrong with this picture, but none of them had the courage to approach me directly. None of them wanted to be the one to confront the family outcast, except for one person. Well, look what the cat dragged in. I turned to find my cousin Derek standing behind me with a smirk on his face. Derek had always been the family troublemaker, the one who said what everyone else was thinking but was too polite to voice. "Hello, Derek. Nice to see you too. I have to admit, I'm impressed. I didn't think you had the guts to show up here after everything that went down." Marcus looked between us, sensing tension but not understanding the context. "I'm sorry. I don't think we've met," Marcus said, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus Webb, Jake's friend from college." Derek shook his hand but kept his eyes on me. "Derek Patterson, Amber's cousin. Though I'm surprised she didn't mention the family drama when she asked you to be her date." "Derek," I warned. "What?" "I'm just saying, it takes real balls to crash a wedding you weren't invited to, especially when the bride specifically asked that you not be here." Marcus looked shocked. "Wait, what?" "Amber, I thought—" "Don't worry about it, Marcus. Derek likes to cause problems. It's his specialty. Problems? I'm not the one who showed up uninvited to my brother's wedding. That's a new low. Even for you, Amber." I felt my carefully controlled composure starting to crack. I was invited by Marcus. As his +1. "Right. Because you couldn't get your own invitation. Wonder why that was?" The guests around us were starting to notice the tension. Conversations were quieting. Heads were turning. This was exactly what I'd wanted to avoid, at least until my video played. "Maybe we should take this somewhere more private," Marcus suggested, clearly uncomfortable with the scene Derek was creating. "Oh no. Let's air it all out right here," Derek continued. "Let's talk about why the groom's own sister wasn't invited to his wedding. Let's discuss what kind of person gets cut out of their own family." "Derek, that's enough," I said firmly. "Is it? Because I think people should know what kind of drama they might be dealing with. I think Sarah's family deserves to know that Jake's sister is the type of person who— Who what?" I interrupted. "Who got divorced? Who had her heart broken and her life turned upside down? Who needed her family's support during the worst time of her life and got abandoned instead?" The terrace had gone quiet now. All eyes were on us. This was not how I'd wanted things to go. "Who made everything about herself as usual?" Derek shot back. "Who couldn't accept that maybe, just maybe, her brother's wedding day wasn't about her?" "You're right," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "It's not about me. It's about Jake. It's about the brother who used to tell me I was the most important person in his life. The brother who promised he'd always have my back. The brother who chose his fiancé's comfort over his sister's existence." "Amber," Marcus said quietly, putting a hand on my arm. "Maybe we should—" "No, it's fine. Derek wants the truth. Let's give him the truth. Let's tell everyone how Jake's small, intimate wedding somehow managed to include 112 people, but not his own sister. Let's talk about how I found out about this wedding through Instagram. Let's discuss how my own parents chose to support their son's decision to erase me from his life, rather than stand up for their daughter." The crowd was staring now. Some people had their phones out, probably recording. This was becoming exactly the kind of scene my mother had been terrified of, but I was past caring. "Let's talk about family loyalty. Derek. Let's discuss what it means to stand by the people you love, even when it's inconvenient. Amber, stop!" The voice came from behind me. I turned to see Jake pushing through the crowd, still in his tuxedo but looking pale and shaken. "Jake," I breathed. "Derek, that's enough. Go find something else to do." Derek held up his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, I was just asking questions. Trying to understand why your sister thought it was appropriate to crash your wedding." I said that's enough. Jake's voice was firm, commanding. I'd never heard him use that tone before. Derek shrugged and melted back into the crowd, but the damage was done. Everyone was staring, whispering, waiting to see what would happen next. Jake looked at me with a mixture of guilt and frustration. "We need to talk, privately." He led me away from the crowd, through the garden, to a quiet corner near the estate's original carriage house. Marcus started to follow, but Jake waved him off. "I'll bring her back in a few minutes," he told Marcus. "Just give us some space." Once we were alone, Jake ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. Jesus, Amber. What are you doing here? I came to watch my brother get married. Isn't that what sisters are supposed to do? You know that's not what I mean. How did you even get in? Sarah had security specifically to prevent what? To prevent your sister from witnessing your wedding? Jake winced. To prevent any complications. Complications. Is that what I am now? A complication? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Jake? Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you and your new wife went to great lengths to make sure I couldn't be part of your special day. Jake was quiet for a long moment, staring at the ground. How did you get in? He asked again. Marcus invited me as his +1. He had no idea I wasn't supposed to be here because he assumed that a groom would naturally invite his own sister to his wedding. Crazy concept, right? Amber? Do you know what the worst part is, Jake? It's not even that you didn't invite me. It's that you lied about why. You made me think it was about Sarah's family being traditional and conservative. You made me feel like my divorce made me damaged goods, unfit for polite society. Jake's face crumpled. But that wasn't the real reason, was it? The real reason is much simpler. Sarah doesn't like me. She thinks I'm dramatic and needy and embarrassing. And you were too much of a coward to stand up to her. How do you know that? The words slipped out before Jake could stop them, confirming everything I suspected. Because I did my research, Jake. Because when someone cuts you out of their life, you want to understand why. Because I spent weeks trying to figure out how 112 people could be more important to you than your own sister? Jake looked like he was in physical pain. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? How do you exclude your sister from your wedding in a way that doesn't hurt? I don't know. I thought maybe you'd understand. Maybe you'd realize that it was better for everyone if you weren't here. Better for everyone? Or better for Sarah? Jake didn't answer, which was answer enough. Do you love her? I asked. What kind of question is that? A simple one. Do you love Sarah more than you love me? That's not fair. You can't compare romantic love to... I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about loyalty, about family, about the promises we made to each other growing up. Do you remember, Jake? Do you remember when Dad got that job offer in Seattle and you made me promise that no matter where we lived, no matter what happened, we'd always have each other's backs? Jake's eyes filled with tears. Of course I remember. You were 8 years old, and you were terrified that moving would mean losing the only constant in your life. Me. Your big sister who helped you with homework and scared away bullies and promised you that family was forever. Amber, please. What happened to that little boy, Jake? What happened to the brother who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms? The one who made me friendship bracelets and promised we'd be best friends forever? People change. Life gets complicated. No, Jake. People make choices. And you chose Sarah over me. The silence stretched between us. In the distance, I could hear music and laughter from the reception. His guests, all 112 of them, were celebrating while the groom had a breakdown in the garden. I'm sorry, Jake said finally. I'm so sorry, Amber, you're right. About everything. I chose Sarah's comfort over your feelings. I chose the easy path over doing what was right. I chose to be a coward instead of a brother. Why? Because Sarah is my future and you're my past. The words hit me like a slap. Your past? That came out wrong. I didn't mean... No, I think you meant exactly what you said. I'm your past, the messy, complicated, inconvenient sister who doesn't fit into your perfect new life. That's not true, isn't it? Look at this wedding, Jake. Look at this perfect, sanitized celebration where everything is beautiful and everyone is successful and happy and uncomplicated. Where do I fit in this picture? The divorced sister who needed therapy and had a public breakdown and couldn't even keep her husband faithful? Your divorce wasn't your fault, but it was embarrassing, wasn't it? It was messy and public and reflected poorly on the family image. Much easier to just forget I exist. Jake was crying now, tears streaming down his face. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did. You destroyed me, Jake. Do you know what it feels like to find out about your brother's wedding through social media? Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your entire family celebrate an event you're excluded from? I thought about calling you so many times. I picked up the phone and started dialing your number. But then Sarah would ask what I was doing, and I'd make some excuse and hang up. You let her control your relationship with your own family? I know, and I hate myself for it. But Amber, you have to understand, Sarah isn't evil. She's not trying to hurt you. She has very strong opinions about family dynamics and drama, and stop defending her. I'm not defending her. I'm trying to explain. No, you're making excuses. Just like you've been making excuses for months. Sarah didn't want me at your wedding, so you found reasons to justify excluding me. Sarah thinks I'm dramatic, so you decided I must be too dramatic to handle. Sarah wants a perfect day, so you sacrificed your sister to give it to her. Jake was sobbing now. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? I can't undo the wedding. I can't change what happened. I want you to admit that you chose her over me. I want you to acknowledge that you threw away 28 years of sibling love for a woman you've known for 2 years. I want you to stop pretending this was about anything other than the fact that your wife doesn't like your sister, and you don't have the backbone to stand up to her. Fine. You're right. Is that what you want to hear? Sarah thinks you're too much. She thinks you're needy and dramatic and that you make everything about yourself. She was worried that having you at the wedding would create problems, that you'd somehow ruin her perfect day. And instead of defending you, instead of telling her that my sister is part of the package, I took the coward's way out. I excluded you to keep the peace. I sacrificed our relationship to avoid conflict with my fiancé. Are you happy now? The truth hung between us like a poison cloud. Finally, after months of lies and excuses and half-truths, Jake had admitted what I'd known all along. His wife hated me, and he'd chosen her feelings over mine. No, I said quietly. I'm not happy. I'm devastated. We stood there in silence for several minutes, both crying, both processing the weight of what had been said. What happens now? Jake asked eventually. I don't know. Are you going to... what were you planning to do tonight? Derek said something about drama. I thought about the video I'd made, about all the research and planning and scheming I'd done to get revenge, about how I'd wanted to expose Sarah's secrets and humiliate them both in front of their guests. I was going to destroy your marriage before it even started, I said honestly. Jake's eyes widened. What? I made a video about Sarah's past, her blog posts, her hypocrisy. I was going to have it played during the reception, right after the best man's speech. I wanted to ruin your perfect day the way you ruined my life. Jesus, Amber. But you know what? Watching you dance with your wife, seeing how happy you looked, I realized something. Destroying your happiness wouldn't make me happy. It would just make both of us miserable. Jake stared at me. So you're not going to... The video's been deleted? The wedding planner figured out what I was planning and stopped it. Probably saved us all from a disaster that would have made tonight's little scene with Derek look like a picnic. Kelly stopped you? She said I was better than that. Turns out she was right. Jake ran his hands through his hair again. I don't deserve your mercy. No, you don't. But revenge isn't going to fix what's broken between us. It's just going to break it more. So what do we do? How do we come back from this? I looked at my brother, really looked at him. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Like the weight of his choices was wearing him down. I don't know if we can come back from this, Jake. I don't know if I can trust you again. You didn't just exclude me from your wedding. You erased me from your life. You let your wife convince you that I was a problem to be solved rather than a sister to be loved. She's not. Sarah isn't a bad person, maybe not, but she's not a good person either. Good people don't ask their partners to choose between them and their family. Good people don't demand that siblings be excluded from weddings because they might be inconvenient. What if I talked to her? What if I explained, Jake, stop, just stop. Sarah got exactly what she wanted tonight. She got her perfect wedding with her perfect guest list and her perfect family dynamic. She won, I lost. You lost too, but you don't seem to realize it yet. What do you mean I lost? You traded your sister for a wife who doesn't respect your family. You gave up 28 years of unconditional love for someone who puts conditions on everything. You chose someone who sees your past as a problem to be managed, rather than a foundation to be celebrated. Jake was quiet for a long moment. So that's it? We're done? I thought about that question. Were we done? Was there any path forward from this betrayal? I don't know, I said honestly. I love you, Jake. I always will. You're my little brother, and that doesn't change just because you broke my heart. But I can't pretend this didn't happen. I can't go back to the way things were and act like everything's fine. What would it take? For us to fix this? It would take you acknowledging that what you did was wrong. Not just the exclusion from the wedding, but everything that led up to it. The lies, the excuses, the choosing. Sarah's comfort over my feelings. All of it. I already did that. You admitted it. That's not the same as acknowledging it. Acknowledging it means understanding how deeply you hurt me and why it's going to take time, maybe a very long time, for me to trust you again. I understand. Do you? Because I don't think you realize the magnitude of what you've done. You didn't just uninvite me from a party, Jake. You told me that I wasn't important enough to witness the most significant day of your life. You said that 112 other people mattered more than your own sister. You chose to build your new life on the foundation of abandoning your old one. Jake winced with each word. I never thought of it that way. Of course you didn't, because thinking of it that way would have made it impossible to justify. It's easier to tell yourself that you were just keeping the peace or avoiding drama. But the truth is, you were willing to sacrifice me to make Sarah happy. So what happens now? Now you go back to your reception. You dance with your wife, cut your cake, celebrate with your 112 guests. You enjoy your perfect wedding. And you? I go home. I try to figure out how to rebuild a life that doesn't revolve around waiting for my family to remember I exist. Amber, please, don't give up on us. Don't give up on me. I looked at him one more time. This man who used to be my little brother, who used to need me to chase away his nightmares and help him with his homework and remind him that he was loved. I'm not giving up on you, Jake. But I'm also not going to keep setting myself on fire to keep you warm. If you want a relationship with me, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to prove that I matter to you, that family means something, that the promises we made to each other as children weren't just words. I'll do whatever it takes. We'll see. I started to walk away, but Jake called after me. Amber, will you at least think about giving me another chance? I turned back to him. Jake, I've been giving you chances for months. Every time you didn't call to explain, every time you let another week go by without reaching out, every time you chose silence over honesty. I kept hoping you'd remember that I was your sister and start acting like it. But now, after tonight, I considered the question. After everything that had happened, after all the pain and betrayal and broken promises, was there still hope for us? Ask me in 6 months, I said finally. If you can spend 6 months being the brother you promised you'd always be, if you can stand up to Sarah when she badmouths me, if you can make it clear that I'm part of your life whether she likes it or not, if you can show me that family actually means something to you, then maybe we can talk about rebuilding what you broke. And if I can't? If Sarah won't? If things don't change? Then you'll have made your choice. Again. I left him standing there in the garden, looking lost and broken in his wedding tuxedo. As I walked back toward the reception, I could hear the music and laughter resuming. The party was continuing without drama, without revelations, without the spectacular revenge I'd planned. I found Marcus near the bar, looking worried and confused. There you are. Is everything okay? That confrontation with your cousin was pretty intense. It's fine. Family drama. You know how it is. Not really, Marcus said honestly. My family's pretty boring. We don't usually have public arguments at weddings. I almost laughed. Almost. Lucky you. Do you want to talk about what's going on? I feel like I'm missing some pretty important context here. I looked around the reception one more time. My parents were back to socializing, though they kept glancing nervously in my direction. Sarah was surrounded by her bridesmaids, laughing at something someone had said. The other guests had moved on from the drama, returning to their conversations and their drinks and their celebration of eternal love. Everything was back to normal. Except nothing would ever be normal again. Marcus, would you mind taking me home? I'm not really in a party mood anymore. Of course. Are you sure you're okay? I will be. Eventually. As we made our way toward the exit, I took one last look at the Grandview estate. Through the windows, I could see Jake and Sarah on the dance floor, swaying to some romantic song while their guests watched with approval. They looked happy, perfect, like nothing had happened. Maybe that was for the best. Maybe some families weren't meant to survive. Maybe some relationships were too broken to fix. But as we drove away from the estate, I realized something important. I was done being the victim in this story. I was done letting their choices define my worth or determine my happiness. For the first time in months, I felt free. 6 months later, Jake called me. He sounded different, older, more serious, less certain of himself. Amber, it's me? I know. I was wondering, would you like to have coffee sometime? To talk? I looked at my calendar, at the life I'd been building without him. The new friends I'd made, the hobbies I'd picked up, the peace I'd found in not waiting for my phone to ring. Maybe, I said. What's changed? Everything, he said quietly. Sarah and we're having some problems. Big problems. And I keep thinking about what you said at the wedding, about choosing someone who doesn't respect family. I think you were right. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? I considered the question. Was I sorry that Jake's marriage was struggling? Was I glad that Sarah's victory was turning out to be hollow? I'm sorry that you're in pain, I said finally. I'm not sorry that you're finally seeing Sarah for who she really is. Fair enough. Listen, I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I broke something between us that might not be fixable. But I've spent the last 6 months thinking about what kind of man I want to be, what kind of brother I want to be, and I want to be better than I was. Jake, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to pretend everything's fine. I'm just asking for the chance to show you that I can do better, that I can be the brother you deserved all along. I was quiet for a long moment, weighing his words against the months of silence that had preceded them. One coffee, I said finally. One conversation, but Jake? If you hurt me again, if you choose someone else's comfort over our relationship again, there won't be a third chance. I won't put myself through this anymore. I understand. Thank you, Amber. Really. Thank you for not giving up on me completely. I haven't given up on you, but I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago. I'm not going to sacrifice my peace for anyone's convenience, not even yours. I wouldn't expect you to. We met the following week at a small cafe downtown. Jake looked tired, older, like the weight of his choices had been pressing down on him for months. But he also looked more like the brother I remembered. Less polished, more real. More like the little boy who used to need me to chase away his nightmares. We talked for 3 hours. He told me about the marriage counseling sessions, about Sarah's resentment that he'd been choosing his sister over his wife, about the fights they'd been having over family priorities and loyalty. He told me about the moment he realized that Sarah would never accept me, would never see me as anything other than a threat to their perfect life. I think I knew it on our wedding day, he said. When I saw you in the garden, when we had that conversation about choices and family and promises, I realized that I'd married someone who would never understand what you mean to me, who would always see you as competition rather than family. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Sarah and I are still in counseling, still trying to work things out. But I've made it clear that you're part of my life whether she likes it or not. That if she can't accept my family, she can't really accept me. How's that going over? Jake gave a rueful laugh. About as well as you'd expect. She thinks I'm being manipulated by you, that I'm letting family drama destroy our marriage. She can't understand why I won't just let you go. Maybe because she's never had a relationship like ours. Maybe because she doesn't. Understand what it means to have someone love you, unconditionally. Maybe. Or maybe she's just not capable of that kind of love. We talked about forgiveness and trust, and the long road back to being siblings again. Jake didn't make excuses this time. He didn't try to justify his choices or minimize the damage he'd done. He just acknowledged the pain he'd caused and asked for the chance to do better. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the fairy tale reconciliation you see in movies, but it was honest, and it was real, and it was a start. As I walked home from that coffee meeting, I thought about the wedding video I'd never shown, the revenge I'd never taken, the family drama I'd chosen not to create. I thought about the path I'd chosen instead. The harder path of healing and growth and refusing to let other people's choices define my worth. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's choosing to save yourself instead. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the people you love find their way back to you on their own.